Hello there and welcome to Homeschooling Adventures. My name is P. Jerauni, and in today's video we are going to looking at the dynamics of imperfect markets, and more specifically we are going to be looking at our oligopoly markets. Now let's just see what we need to know here according to our exam guideline. Now our exam guideline is a guide to both the educators as well as the learners on what is going to be assessed by the examiner and what the learners need to know as they prepare for their exams. Okay, so in this case you will actually see that our exam guideline starts with the examine the oligopoly in detail. So what this means is we might get an essay on the oligopoly markets, because here it says the oligopoly in detail, so it would mean that this is a possible essay question. Okay, and then there are also some other things that some concepts that you would need to know, but I will just highlight some of the concepts. The likes of overt or explicit collusion, which is called a cartel, as well as you must also be able to know the tacit or implicit collusion, which is called the price leadership. And then there should also be an understanding of the king demand curve and why the firms or oligopolists are reluctant to compete on the basis of prices. Now this is like what you can see. I've just taken this extract from the exam guideline for the grade 12 exam guideline for this year 2023. Okay, now let's just move on. Now with us here today we are going to be looking at specific past exam question papers, and these papers you need to note that I've taken these questions that have been assessed from 2017 right up to 2022. Okay, so these are some of the questions that were asked around this area of oligopolies. Okay, so I will just ask you to pause the video a little bit and then you read through this question, read through that extract, and then we'll be back to try and answer the few questions. But I will also ask you, once you have read that, go through the questions on your own, and then we'll come back and revise that. And as we revise, you will then be marking your own work and seeing where you probably did not get it right. Okay, right, so you can now start reading now. Now we are back. I want to believe that you managed to work on the question. Now this is what it said. It was I think after reading that extract, was it says study the extract below and answer the questions that fall. So what generally we were expecting was the learners were supposed to read through this extract, but I will just try to explain a few things before we attempt the question. Now what you need to understand about an oligopoly is this is an industry where we have a small group of firms that control the majority of the market share, okay, or that control the market. We have a small group of firms that are controlling the market, and in this particular context, just to try and explain this, is you see that we have about 5 South African companies that are controlling close to 80% of the market share, and these companies, they are Shoprite, we have Pick and Pay, we have Spar, we have Massmart, and we also have Metcash. Okay, so these are the ones that are controlling almost about 80% of the market, okay, of the retail sales market. Okay, and then we have the other 20% that is then controlled by the informal sector. And our informal sector, we are generally looking at those taverns, we are looking at tuck shops, we are looking at those spazas, and then we are looking at these other informal retail traders. Okay, so they control, they all fight for the remainder of the 20%, okay, which is the majority though. Now what are we saying? We are saying about 5 of the companies controlling 80% of the market. That shows that in that particular market, in that particular industry, these 5 companies, they tend to have a stronger power over the prices that are going to be prevailing in the market. Even on the output that is going to be produced in the market, they tend to have a bit of power there more than the other small traders. Okay, now let's just go to the questions. The question 4.2.1, it says give 2 examples. It says give 2 examples. So here I'm just going to highlight the word 2. Okay, now these 2 examples are on what? These are 2 examples that are on of informal retailers. Okay, so it means my examples, they are supposed to be speaking to informal retailers, and these examples are supposed to come from the extract. Now from here you can now see that informal retailers concept vary from taverns. So we do have taverns. Okay, then we also have tag shops. Okay, and then we also have spazas. Okay, and then we also have street stores. Okay, we also have hawkers. Okay, we also have fast foods and kiosks. Okay, and then we also have these ones that are takeaway foods. Okay, right. Now these are the 5 that you can actually see from this particular extract. So Elena could have given us any one of those 5. We're still going to accept that as correct, and you then get your 2 marks there, because you are supposed to give 2 of them. Then the next question was explain the term oligopoly. Now explain the term oligopoly. Now when we talk about an oligopoly, we are saying it's an industry that is controlled by a small group of firms, where we have a small group of firms that tend to control the majority of the market share, or a bigger percentage of the market share, and then we are saying that's an oligopoly market. Okay, and then the next question then, it now reads that how can ShopRite influence the price of their goods without forming a cartel? Now what we need to understand is a cartel, remember, it's an example of explicit collusion, and normally when we say explicit collusion, we are saying this is when businesses come together and they agree that we are going to manipulate the market output or market quantity with the intention of increasing the prices, the ultimate reason being to increase the price. And remember, we defined what collusion is, and we said this is an act of coming together, and then you agree on doing something that is considered to be illegal. Then we are saying that becomes collusion. So in this case, the question is asking how can ShopRite influence the price of goods without forming a cartel? So in this case now, you now need to understand that probably you could have said by becoming the dominant firm. In other words, if ShopRite becomes the dominant firm, if it now controls the bigger percentage of the market share, then it means it is going to what? It is going to end up influencing the price of products or of their goods without what? Without necessarily entering into an agreement with another company. Okay, and then or another learner could have said maybe this could be achieved through price leadership strategies. Okay, so these are some of the strategies that we are talking about. So normally someone maybe might be asking, how can price leadership strategy be used? Okay, this is what normally firms do. What they can actually do is they can end up taking over maybe another producer of a particular product. Say, take for example, if we are to produce eggs, for example, and we produce also things like vegetables, then it would now mean that maybe they can take over a farm or a plot or a major producer of that particular product, and then it will mean that that producer is not going to sell to anybody, but is going to supply the products straight to them. And in so doing, it would now mean that they are going to be getting the products at a much lower price, and then that can help them to influence on the market prices, because now they have managed to take over another business. Okay, now you could have given us any of those reasons that, or any of those answers or responses, it was still going to be accepted as correct. Then the next one, how do the 5 biggest South African companies increase their market share in the economy? Okay, now what we need to understand is the businesses that operate in an oligopoly market, they normally tend to avoid reducing prices, because like what we have noted in the previous video, if you reduce the price, then it's going to end up resulting in price wars, because even the other firms, they are also going to even reduce the price even more. So what do? Businesses that operate in this kind of market don't really want to go into the area of changing the prices of their products. So what they can do now is they can actually improve on their after sales, because you do now know that to consumers, after sales tends to be a very, very important the thing that is going to determine where you are going to buy your products from, because every time when you buy a product, you want to have probably a service that you are going to get after that product has been sold to you. It could be through installation of those products. If you have bought something, then maybe you would want those people to come in and install the product for you, and that is what is called after sales service. Okay, and then in the case of ShopRite, it would mean that probably we would have those people that are going to be helping us to carry the groceries from the shop to the cars, or from the shop to wherever we are going. Then it would mean that that is not something that you are going to pay for, but you are going to go there because after you have bought the products, the people are going to give you an extra service, an additional service that you are not going to pay for. So after sales service is one way that they can actually use to increase their market share. Okay, because people will now go and buy from them because they want that after sales. And then you can also notice that they need to also start spending a bit of some money on advertising. Spend a bit more money on advertising, because the moment you advertise, you are going to attract people to come and buy the products from your shop. Okay, right. So it means now by advertising, you are actually attracting customers into buying your products. Okay, so through advertising, that's the other way that they could have done. And there's also this thing of loyalty, the brand loyalty. In other words, you would now need to understand that normally firms that operate in an oligopoly market, they want the customers to believe that their product is a superior product. Okay, so if ShopRite wants to increase its market share, then what it needs now to do is it needs to create that brand loyalty, where customers would generally believe that if we go and buy from ShopRite, then we are going to buy a superior product. Okay, so it's another way that they could have used. And then you would also find that the ShopRite can also introduce even the loyalty cards. Okay, like I think you would now understand that whenever you go and you buy from these shops, they always ask you if you have their card. Okay, and then if you give them their card, it will accumulate points, or probably you buy certain items at a cheaper price than the shelf price. So what we are saying there is the loyalty cards is also another way that they can actually try to use to try and make sure that they dominate the market, because once you have that card, you are going to be every time visiting that shop to try and use that card so that you can fetch the reward points, or sometimes you can then also get even a discount. Okay, so that's another way that they can use. And then the other way that they can also use is they can even use a payback on the rewards. So what it means now, if someone has accumulated a certain number of points, then they can actually claim a bit of cash from the shop. Okay, so it would now mean that people will go to the shop to go and use that card more often, so that it accumulates more points and when it reaches a certain level, then they will then get some amount that is going to be given to them in cash. So those are some of the measures that they could have put in place to make sure that they dominate the market. But the other thing that they can also do is even to offer extended business hours. Okay, by extending business hours, then it would mean that most customers are going to be coming into the shop and buying in the shop for a relatively longer period of time, and this extension of business hours stretches to even opening on public holidays as well as on Sundays, okay, and then closing very late even on Sundays. So those are extended business hours. We are saying they are going to remain open even outside the normal hours that are supposed to be hours of trade, okay. And then the other thing that they can also do is they could even use the internet, where people can then buy online, and then they can get delivery, the products delivered to them having bought online. So when you look at all these measures, all these are measures that can be put in place by ShopRite or any firm that is in an oligopoly market to try and get an increase in the market share, okay. But in this particular context, we are looking at ShopRite. So you could have given us any two of those, it was going to be accepted as correct. Okay, so I just want you to put a total. I want to believe that you managed to get everything right. Now, if you did not, then we have given you those corrections. I want to believe that next time it comes in the exam, then you should be able to answer those questions. Okay, let's go to the next set of questions, and this particular set of questions is something that I took from the Department of Basic Education, the November 2016 economics paper 2, and then it said, explain with the aid of a well-labeled graph why oligopolists will not compete on prices to increase his or her market share. Why they will not compete on prices as a way of trying to increase on their market share. So I'm just going to, this one, it came as an additional part. As you can see here, you will see that this paper was, this question was marked out of 10. And what we now know in economics, if this question is marked out of 10, then it means it came as an additional part to the essay. Okay, so I'm just going to give you a few minutes just to attempt that question on explaining why oligopolists are not keen to compete on the price, okay, as a way of trying to increase their market share. Okay, and you are supposed to use a well-labeled graph. Okay, so I'm just going to leave you for a few minutes just to draw that graph, and then you tell us what is happening. Okay, all the best. Okay, so let's just go through that question together, and let's see why oligopolists are not willing to compete on the basis of prices. Now, you would recall that an oligopoly firm is faced with what is called a kinked demand curve. Okay, and I think this is something that was explained more in the previous video. Okay, so they are faced with what is called a kinked demand curve, and a kinked demand curve, it means we have that part of the demand curve, and then we also have that part of the demand curve. Okay, and this is what is called the demand curve. That's the D, and we now know that our demand is equal to our average revenue, which is obviously equal to our price, correct? Okay, and we now know that this side is the quantity, okay, and this side is our price, okay, and this one is our origin. This one is our origin. Okay, now this one we said it's D is equal to AR. Okay, now if we look at this one, we are going to look at this point here that we said is called the kink. In other words, this one is a kinked demand curve, and there is this point where the this demand curve where this demand curve meets this demand curve. At this point here, it's called the kink. Okay, now at that point we are now saying the firms, they tend to charge prices at that point. In other words, let's just look at what the price is, and I'm just going to assume that this price probably is P1. Okay, I'll just name it P1. That's the price there, and then let's just check our quantity there, and our quantity, you are going to notice that our quantity is Q P1. Okay, that's our quantity. Now this firm here tends to is providing Q1 quantities at price P1. Okay, now if they decide to increase their price, it means they are going to sell at a price that is higher than P1. If they decide to increase their price from P1 probably to that level, which I'm going to call P2, okay, if they decide to increase that price, it means the quantity that is going to be sold by this firm is going to go down to probably Q2. And if you can look at this, you will notice that because the price has increased, it means the quantity that is going to be demanded is going to go down. Now why did that quantity go down? It went down because when this firm here increased its prices, okay, when the firm increased its prices, the other firms that operate in that particular market did not increase the price. If they increase the price and the other firms that operate in that particular market do not increase the price, then it means this firm here is going to end up losing on customers as people go and buy from the other firm that did not change its price. Okay, so that's the problem of increasing prices. If they sell the price at a price that is above, if they sell their products at a price that is above the level of the king, I'm just going to call this E. Okay, if they sell the products at a price that is above the equilibrium, then it would mean that they are going to lose on customers because the other firms that did not change the price, they become a cheaper option for the customers. Okay, and then if they decide then to reduce the price, maybe they reduce the price from P1 all the way down maybe to P3. Okay, we are going to notice that, okay, we are going to notice that this quantity that is going to be demanded for the firm is just going to be Q3. Okay, it's going to be Q3 there, and then what this one now is the price P3. So when they decide to reduce the price to P3, okay, what will end up happening is they are only going to make a little more in terms of sales. Why is that so? It is so because even the other firms, they might also reduce their prices even more, resulting in what is called price wars. Okay, where firms that operate in an oligopoly market are going to be competing against each other on the basis of lowering of prices. Okay, now this is what we are talking about. So what will end up happening is they are not willing to increase the price, because if they increase the price and the other firms do not, then they will lose out on customers. If they reduce the price and the other firms, they will even reduce the prices even more, and in so doing it would now result in what are called price wars. So firms that operate in an oligopoly market, they are reluctant to participate on the basis of price increase or decreases. Okay, so this is what we are talking about. So this is the graph that we were expecting. Okay, so what we expected on this one, if you had written labeled the graph quantity, you'll get the mark there for labeling the axis quantity and price, and then also for indicating the equilibrium point, which is point E. Remember, the equilibrium for an oligopoly firm is at the point of the king, so it means that's our equilibrium. So for indicating E there, you get another mark, and then also for indicating the changes, like these arrows here indicating the direction that is resulting from the changes, you are going to be getting some marks there. Okay, so these were possibly 6 marks that learners could have received, and also for indicating that D is equal to AR, you also get another mark there. So these were 6 marks that a learner could have easily snatched from this particular question. And then you, by explaining that graph, what we are talking about, what happens when the price increases and other firms don't respond, or what happens when the price decreases and the other firms respond by even decreasing the price more, then you were going to get your other 4 marks there to get it as 10 marks. So it was an easy question. I want to believe that we all got it right. Well done. Okay, let's give the next activity and let's see what happens. Okay, so on this particular question, we now have this question, and it looks at the cement industry, and you can actually see that it says study the illustrations below and answer the questions that follow. And then this was a paper that I took from, this was a question that I took from in November 2017. It was an economics paper 2 question, and then it was question 4.2, and then we have Lafarge, we have PPC, we have Afrisem, we have Sepaku, and then this one that had also been adopted from Google. Okay, so we are going to look at this one. So I will just ask you to pause the video a bit, and then you can attempt the question, and then we'll be back to revise the question together. Okay, all the best. Yes, I hope you managed to do that. So let's just quickly go through it again, and let's see how we're supposed to have answered that. So it says study the instructions below, the illustrations below, and answer the questions that follow. And you can see Lafarge, PPC, Afrisem, and Sepaku. And if you look at this, we are told a few companies dominate the cement industry in South Africa. So this one is a cement industry. All these companies, they are responsible for the production of cement. Okay, now in the question 4.2.1, it reads, identify the products produced by the businesses above. So the products that is produced is what is called cement. So you see now, even if you check here, it's already written for you, cement industry. So it means these ones are the ones that are responsible for the production of cement in our country. And then the next one, so it's cement, that's one mark for you there. And then which market structure is depicted above? Now this particular market structure, we are told that a few companies dominate the industry in South Africa. So that in itself, it should tell you as a learner that we are talking about an oligopoly here. Okay, we are talking about an oligopoly. Okay, this one is oligopoly. And the next question, so if you wrote oligopoly, then you get your 1 mark there. Okay, and then the next question reads, why will the new businesses find it difficult to enter into this type of a market? Why will the new businesses find it difficult to enter into this type of a market? Now, what we already know about these oligopoly markets, you would understand that these products here, they have already been established. These are already big companies. Okay, so why will small business find it difficult to enter into this into this market? It is because they are already these big companies that are going to be using branding as a way of trying to muscle out the small businesses that are coming into the industry. So it means that's one challenge that is going to be faced by small businesses, because the big companies are going to use branding as a way of trying to muscle out the small businesses from the industry. And then you would also need to understand that for small business to be able to survive in this particular market, then it would mean that they need to advertise extensively. They need to advertise more, and if you are to advertise, then it becomes costly for them to be able to advertise. So it would now mean that there's already big companies that are operating there. They are already enjoying economies of scale. They are able to produce large quantities at a relatively lower cost per unit. So it means these big businesses, because of the existence of economies of scale, it's even going to make it more difficult for small businesses to come and survive in the particular market where these big businesses are. Okay, so those are some of the challenges. And then you would also need to understand that the other challenge that is there is these particular businesses, they are going to find it even more difficult because to come into the industry, because it requires huge capital. There is huge capital requirements that are needed for you to be able to start producing cement. Okay, so all these are the reasons why small businesses might find it difficult to go and survive into that particular market. Okay, right, so any one of those answers was going to be accepted as correct. Then what does interdependence of businesses in this market structure imply? Now when we talk about interdependence, we are saying because we have a few sellers that are operating in that particular market, or that dominate in that particular market, it would now mean that every time a seller wants to sell a product, their decision on how much they are supposed to charge for the product is going to be determined by the possible reaction that they are going to get from the other firm that operates in that particular industry. So it would now mean that there is interdependence, because this firm cannot act independently of the other. Every time they want to make a decision, then they've got to look at the possible reaction of the other firms that operate in that particular market. So that's why there is interdependence in this particular market. And then it says, explain without the use of a graph why businesses in this industry will be reluctant to decrease the price of their products. Now I think it's almost the same as the one that we looked at before. We said in the previous question, if firms decide to reduce the price, then it's going to end up resulting in what are called price wars, where the other firms that operate in that particular industry are also going to even reduce the price even lower. And in that case, we are saying that firm that initially reduced the price is going to lose out. For example, if Lafarge decides to reduce the price, then PPC is going to even reduce the prices even to a lower price than what Lafarge is charging. And in so doing, it would now mean that PPC and Lafarge has entered into what is called a price war. Okay, so what it would now mean is Lafarge would then end up losing, and for it to survive, then it would mean it needs to reduce even the price even more than PPC, and then that can continue until they end up charging prices that are not going to make any economic sense. So in this case, these are some of the answers that learners could have explained. So we only needed two explanations why they can't do that. One, it results in price wars. In the second one, it would now mean that if one firm tries to reduce the price, then the other one might even end up reducing the price even more. And if that happens, then it would mean that they've now entered into a price war, which might end up forcing those businesses to close. Okay, so they wouldn't want to go that route of reducing the price. And the other problem is, whenever they reduce the price, remember that bottom part of the king demand curve is relatively inelastic. So what it would mean that they are, by reducing the price so much, they are only going to get so little in terms of the increase in the quantity that is going to be demanded. And you will find that in terms of the total revenue, the business might not make as much as it used to make before. So those are some of the things that will force the businesses not to reduce their prices. Okay, now let's just look at the next part. Yes, okay, so now on your screen there, I'm sharing with you this question on question 4.2. It's just a question that I took also from the DBE November 2020 exam, and this one was question 4.2 in the economics paper 2. Now it says here, study the graph below and answer the questions that follow. So what I'll ask you to do is to pause the video and then attempt the questions, and then after you've attempted the questions, you can then press play. Then that's when we are going to come back and I will give you the answers as you mark your own work. Okay, all the best. Starts now. Alright, now I want to believe that you found the question quite interesting and you managed to handle the question. Now let's just go through the question together then. Now the question says study. Okay, study the graph below, and then after studying the graph, it says answer the questions that follow. So what you are supposed to do, remember, as always, we start by studying the graph, and then when we have finished studying the graph, we are then going to answer the questions that are then going to follow. Okay, so let's just start by looking at the graph that we have there. Let's just study the graph. So what we now have here is I have a graph where I have this side, I have the price, and the price is going to be in rands. So what it means is, if there's a question that needs me to give any figures, for example, to give 28 or to give 40, then it means it's going to be 28 or 40 rands. I'm going to be using rands when I denominate my values there. So it's important to remember that you write your units like 40 rands. Then that will be very important in the exam. Then the next one, the other side, we can see that these are in millions. Now the question is, if you are given any question that is going to ask you to give maybe 700 as the correct answer, so you should understand that your answer is not going to be 700, but your answer is going to be 700 million, because these are millions that are given here. Okay, so you need to understand that, and it's very, very important that when you give your answers, you give your answers correctly. You give the correct answers. You don't just say 700. 700 is not the same thing as saying 700 million. Those two figures are different. Okay, so in this case now, we would also understand that this one is a kinked demand curve. Why am I saying it's a kinked demand curve? Because I have two demand curves. I have this side that is indicated D1, and I have that demand curve there that is indicated D. So it means I have two demand curves there. Okay, now in this demand curve that is indicated D, we said this top part here, it represents relatively elastic demand. We said this part here represents relatively elastic. Okay, we said it represents relatively elastic demand. Okay, elastic. Okay, now that's what we now know. I will just write relatively elastic there, and then this bottom part here, it now represents what is called the relatively inelastic. Okay, relatively inelastic. Okay, this is what it means now. So the bottom part represents relatively inelastic, and the top part represents what is called relatively elastic demand. Okay, and then we would also remember that at the equilibrium, or at the point of the kink, that's where we have what is called unitary elasticity. That's the point that we are going to have what is called unitary elasticity. Now let's just go to the question. So this one is a kink demand curve. I can see. Okay, all right, so let's just move on and let's look at what it does here. So we are told that identify the inelastic segment, the inelastic segment of the demand curve. Now what it would mean now is, once you have studied the graph, it would mean that the inelastic segment is the segment where we have E to D1. E to D1 is the inelastic segment. Okay, now you need to understand that E to D1 is the inelastic segment. Okay, now or another learner could have said the segment below the kink, or you could have said the segment below the kink. All right, now let's just move to the next question. The next question reads, name the demand curve above. We now know that this one is called a kinked demand curve. This one is called a kinked demand curve. Okay, it's called a kinked demand curve. Okay, that's the name of the demand curve above. Okay, it's called a kinked demand curve. Okay, kinked demand curve, like that. Okay, right. Then the next one, briefly describe the term tacit collusion. Now when we say tacit collusion, this is a situation where firms or the behavior of firms is motivated by an arrangement that is not formal. It is when the behavior of the firms is motivated by an arrangement that is not formal. In other words, the firms are not going to sit and agree that this is what we are going to do, but the behavior of probably a market leader in that particular oligopolistic industry is going to influence the behavior of the rest of the firms that operate in that particular industry, without necessarily having agreed on a certain course of action or on a certain thing that we are going to do it. So if they do that, then we say that type of collusion is what is called tacit collusion. Okay, now that's tacit collusion there. So we are saying this is when the behavior of firm is motivated by an arrangement that is not formal. Okay, or another learner could have just said this is when the market leader in an oligopolistic industry increases the price and expect the other firms to take that to be a market signal, as well as then also respond by increasing the prices. Okay, so if you had any of those answers, then you are going to mark it correct. Okay, then we go to the next part of the question. It says, how does profit in an oligopoly differ from profit of a monopolistic? This is profit of an oligopoly. Okay, what is the difference? So we are saying differ. That's profit of an oligopoly. How does it differ from the profit of a monopolistic competitor? Okay, and this is supposed to be in the long run. In the long run. Now what we now know is an oligopoly in the long run, it makes what is called economic profits. That's what we now know. We now know that an oligopoly firm makes economic profits in the long run. And then what kind of profits are made by a monopolistic? A monopolistic competitor, it makes normal profits in the long run. So what do we know? We know an oligopoly makes normal profits in the long run, and a monopolistic makes an oligopoly makes economic profits in the long run, and monopolistic make normal profits in the long run. Okay, so you now need to understand that. And then so why is it that monopolies make monopolistic competitors make normal profits in the long run? It is because, remember, in the monopolistic competition, there are minimum barriers to entry, and we tend to have a lot of firms that are there. So if there's profits that were made in the short run, those profits are going to end up attracting more new businesses into the industry. Are we together there? Forcing the monopolistic competitor to be faced with normal profits in the long run. Are we together there? So this is what we are saying. So in this case now, we are saying what is the difference between oligopoly profits and monopolistic profits in the long run? We are saying oligopolies, they make economic profits in the long run, while monopolistic competitors, they make normal profits in the long run. So that is the answer that I was expecting from you. Okay, right. And then the next one, why? Now every time we have the question why, right, you now need to give us, it means this question here, or the examiner on this one is expecting you to give a reason, because the question is why, so we expect you to give a reason. Okay, right. So why will the producer be reluctant to decrease the price from 40 rands to 28 rands, right? Show all calculations. Now you are supposed to show all calculations to show why a producer will be reluctant. When we say reluctant, we are saying why is the producer not interested, or why is the producer not motivated or encouraged, are we together, to decrease the price, okay, from 40 rands to 28 rands? Why are they not encouraged? Now there the question says show all calculations. So what it means now is you are supposed to show the calculations that justify why the producer is not encouraged or is reluctant to decrease the prices. Are we together? Right. So this is what I was expecting from you. So what you are supposed to do is, you now know that at 40 rands, okay, the producer is selling 700. Okay, right? In other words, we are saying at 40 rands the producer is selling 700, so that's 40. We want to know how much profit, how much revenue the producer is making. Okay, because remember, if they are making more money, then they would rather be encouraged. If they don't make more money, then it's going to be a problem. So it's 40 times that, and if you do that on your calculator, I think your answer, you got it as 28,000. Okay, your answer was 28,000. Okay, 28,000. 28,000. Okay, that's the first part. Okay, so at first, if it was at 40, then it means they are going to sell 700 units, and they are 700 million units, and they would make 28,000. Okay, now it would now mean that right, that's the amount of money that they are going to make. And then if they do sell the next one, which is if they reduce the price to 28, if they reduce the price at 28, it would mean that they are going to sell how many units? They will sell 800 units there. They will end up selling 800 units. Okay, it would now mean that here is 28 by 800. Okay, 28 by 800. Okay, and if you do that on your calculator, let's just check the figure here on your calculator, it means your answer is going to be 22,400. It's going to be 22,000. These are rands, remember. Okay, so it's 22,400. Okay, right, so it means they are going to make 22,400 rands, and these ones are rands. Now, why are they not encouraged to reduce the price? If they maintain the price at 40 rands, they are making 28,000. Okay, if they reduce the price to 28 rands, then they are going to make 22,000. So obviously, by just merely looking at these two figures, it will then tell you that the producers are going to be selling at 40, because that's where they are going to be making a lot of money. Okay, they will make more money if they sell at 40 rands than when they sell at 28 rands. So this is what you would have done. In other words, you would have told them that if they reduce the price from 40 to 28, then they are going to sell at 22. They are going to make a total revenue of 22,400. Okay, which is a decrease. So they would rather keep the price where they are at 40 rands. Okay, right, so these are the answers to this particular question. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you the next part of the activity, and then you will look at that particular activity. Okay, it comes now. Okay, right, that's the question that we are going to be doing. So you are just going to pause the video, and then you go through the activity, and then you press play, then we can continue from where we left off. Now your time starts now. Okay, right, welcome back. I want to believe that you managed to answer those questions. Now the question here says study the extract below and answer the questions that follow, and then we can see that it's oligopoly, and we see that there is something that is called collusion there in the banking sector. Okay, now if you read through this, you now understand that there was a collusion that was entered, there was an agreement that was entered into by some banks to try and manipulate the exchange rate, the foreign exchange rate. Okay, and now this agreement was of a formal nature. It was of a formal nature. Okay, that's what we can now read. And then from there, we are saying there's also been, as a result of that, we have also had the establishment of the Competition Commission. We also had the Competition Tribunal, and then we have the establishment of the Competition Appeals Court. Okay, to try and deal with the issues of collusion. Okay, that was taking place in different sectors, and they continue to do that. Okay, so this is the rough background of the story, and I'm glad you have read and you have understood the story. Now let's just go through the questions here. The question says identify. So when it says identify, these first questions are very, very simple. You just go to the extract and then you get the answers there. So it says identify the institution that is responsible for investigating exhibiting anti-competitive behavior, and the institution that is responsible there is what is called the Competitions Commission. That's the name of the institution that is responsible for that. Okay, then the next one, we have what is name. It says name the type of collusion explained in the extract above. We are naming the type of collusion. Okay, now we have two types of collusions. We have one which is called tacit collusion, which we looked at in the previous questions, and then that one is an informal agreement that is entered into by oligopolistic firms. Okay, but we also have one which is called overt collusion. Now when we say overt collusion, we are saying this one is a formal agreement that is entered into by firms to manipulate or maybe output with the intention of pushing up the prices, and such a type of collusion is of a formal nature. They actually agree on it, so we sometimes call it explicit collusion. Okay, so you need to understand that. So in this case now, they are saying name the type of collusion explained in the extract above. So Elena could have said overt, or you could have said explicit, or you could have said formal collusion. Whichever answer that you gave us there, you are going to get your 1 mark. Okay, and this is how we write the word overt. Okay, this is the spelling for the word overt. Okay, right, so if you wrote overt there, then you are going to get your 1 mark. Okay, right, let's go to the next one. Briefly describe the term oligopoly. Now when you say oligopoly, we are saying this is a market structure in which it is dominated, or it's a market structure that is dominated by a small group of firms, or a few large firms. Okay, we have few large firms that dominate in that particular market, and we say that one is called the oligopoly market. So it's a market structure where we have a few dominant firms in that particular market. Okay, so if you said it's a market structure where we have few dominant firms, then you are going to get your 2 marks there. Okay, now then the next one, how does the existence of monopolies influence the supply? In other words, the existence of monopolies, the existence of monopolies, how does it influence the supply of goods and services? Okay, how does it influence the supply of goods and services? Now what we now know is when monopolies in the market, or in the economy, then we are going to have a small group of, or we are going to have a small number of suppliers. Okay, now if that happens, then it affects the supply or the quantity of goods and services that are going to be supplied. Okay, so the existence of monopolies, what it does is it reduces on the quantity of goods and services that are going to be supplied in the market. That's number one that it does. And then the second thing that it also does, it is going to end up resulting in the price of goods and services going up. Okay, it's going to end up resulting in the price of goods and services increasing. Okay, so it means now, because now there is limited supply and the demand has remained unchanged, you and me would now agree that we would then obviously have an increase in the price of the goods and services. Okay, so if you have spoken about any one of those two, you say that it reduces on the quantity of goods and services that are going to be supplied, then we accept that, correct? Or you say it's going to end up because of the reduced supply on the goods and the quantity of goods and services that is being provided in the market, then it will end up resulting in an increase in the price or higher prices. Then we will also accept that as correct. Okay, right, then the next one, what is the impact? In other words, we are saying impact of price fixing on what? On the market. Okay, so we are looking at the impact of price fixing on the market. So you are not going to be talking about anything else, but you are looking at specifically how price fixing is going to affect the market. Okay, so in this case now, Elena could have said businesses may be forced to pay penalties. In other words, that's how it affects. If they do price fixing, then they are going to be charged penalties for doing that. Okay, if they are caught, then it would now mean that its impact is businesses are going to be forced to pay penalties if they are caught in the market, and if they are found guilty of price fixing. Okay, and then the next one is the demand for products is going to decrease. Why? Because we are saying whenever they do price fixing, they are going to increase the prices. Okay, they are going to increase the prices. So what it would now mean is when the price increases, consumers, they are not going to be able to afford the goods and services. So what it means, goods and services become more expensive for the consumers, and they will not be able to afford those goods and services. Okay, and then you also need to understand that this is the impact of that is consumers are going to end up paying higher prices for the goods and services. Okay, and then you would also need to understand that if there are higher prices, if price also increases, then what it does is it's going to reduce on the quantity of goods and services that are going to be demanded. In other words, it is going to reduce on aggregate demand. Okay, it reduces on aggregate demand in the economy. Okay, and then you would also find that businesses, because now they have fixed the prices, they are going to enjoy temporarily some higher profits, and those profits that they are going to enjoy, they are going to result in an increase in supply, because when there are higher profits, what did we say happens? They will attract more businesses, or they will encourage suppliers to produce more goods, and when they produce more goods, then it means we are going to end up having an increase in aggregate supply. Okay, and then eventually the markets will correct themselves. Okay, so those are the effects. So what it will do on the market is we are going to end up having an increase in profits that is going to be realized in the short run by businesses, and those increase in profits is going to result in firms producing more goods and services to try and fetch more profits. Okay, if they do that, then it would now mean that we are going to have an increase in supply, and then obviously the prices would then go down. Okay, it can also but in the short run, when the price goes up, it's going to end up resulting in probably a decrease in the quantity that is going to be demanded by consumers, because now goods are expensive. So you could have given us any two of those responses. Your answer was going to be marked or accepted as correct for all the 4 marks. Okay, how many marks did you get? I want to believe that you got it all right. 10 out of 10. Oh, well done. Clap hands for yourself. Okay, that's a job well done. Now, this is all that we had in this particular video. If you liked the video, click the like button and remember to subscribe to the channel. All the best in your studies. Good luck. I'm out.